In early 2019, Star Citizen produced the most viral moment in its never-ending development. And like so many epic moments in our history, it was a complete accident. Picture this, a frozen moon that looks like Hoth with a small remote drug lab named Jumptown. It's a completely insignificant place most players had never heard of until one mistake in the code turned it into the site of the single biggest war this game has ever seen. But you don't need me to describe it. This clip from Bed Bananas captures the insanity better than I ever could. So before I tell you why Jumptown started CIG down the wrong development path, you need to see what a real emergent war in this game looked like.
I say the best bet is we don't kill him and we just sneak onto their
Good. Dead!
A2's back, run, Lemon!
Yeah, get some distance! Move!
I almost feel bad for him. They're just gone.
I was watching two guys running the cargo operation and then the bomb just fell out of nowhere. I was like, what is that? Little piece of scrap or something? Oh.
Those people are just meat now. I don't even... dust.
Whoa! Look at the rocks that's just
So
up.
cool. Is he bombing the surrounding area?
No, it looks like it's just on... Wait. No, yeah, that one was not on target. That one was to the right.
Run!
We should get more distance.
Oh God, Lemon! Or one more! Alright, this is plenty.
We're gonna have to come.
What happened?
A2 bomb hit us.
Drop.
We get enough credits?
Oh yeah.
If you watched that and thought, that was awesome, you're right. I encourage you to go watch this video and give it a like after this. Nobody scripted a single frame of it. In fact, the only way to find Jumptown was to navigate there by texture terrain clues because it didn't have an in-game marker. As word of mouth on Reddit and Spectrum grew, thousands of players found that tiny outpost on their own and turned it into a shooting gallery for months. At the time, it was exactly the thing Star Citizen needed. CIG was years into development hell with Squadron 42, while the pace of development in the persistent universe seemed to slow down considerably post 3.0. Star Citizen's own website still said Squadron 42 beta in 2020, but by that point, I doubt many people really believed it. Star Citizen needed a win. Following the success of Jumptown, CIG would go on to make a real in-game event called Jumptown 2.0. And while people played it, I'd argue, at least from my point of view, that it could never live up to the original. There's a few major reasons for that. First, the original Jumptown was a complete accident. CIG didn't have this amazing idea to create a PvP war in the middle of nowhere on Yela. The developer made a mistake with the pricing of Widow. It's a synthetic drug in Star Citizen. Players could buy the drug cheaply at the lab and then sell it for massive profits. There was nothing else in this game like lawful cargo running or even mercenary missions that paid anything close to this. It became the driving force in a completely broken economy. Secondly, the conditions only worked because CIG wasn't controlling it. The economy error created an incentive, and then everything that happened from there was the result of the players. Unlike our current events, or even a game like Call of Duty or Battlefield, there were no objectives or rigid structure. Jumptown 2.0 could never recreate the original because the thing CIG was trying to recreate was the absence of CIG's guidance altogether. And lastly, the game was very different than the Star Citizen that we're playing today. Star Citizen in 2019 had a fraction of the gameplay choices that we, at least usually, enjoy. But even more importantly, it had a fraction of the necessary systems that make games, well, games. Go back further, and there was a time when you'd log into Star Citizen and everything you did on your character would disappear when you log out, including any items you bought or credits you made. You were like a permanent goldfish in the verse. You existed for that play session, and then the game forgot everything you did when you left. Eventually, Star Citizen started to add persistence gradually. By the time Jumptown happened, the money and items persisted between sessions, but major patches would still erase everything. It happened before we had any physical inventories too. It meant that everyone that was playing was still playing for the moment. The consequence of all that, and I think the part people severely overlook, is that the stakes were also way lower. There wasn't a prison system in the game yet. If you were given a crime stat, you respawned at Grim Hex in the orbit of Yellow that was already close to Jumptown. So dying was a minor time penalty to get right back to the fight. Without long-term persistence, the idea of progression was completely missing, and you couldn't loot a player you killed, so loss wasn't a real thing either. All of this contributes to a YOLO environment where people were looking for something to do and converged on the single most interesting thing in the game. It's the combination of those elements that made Jumptown a success, and it reinforces the biggest myth in all of gaming. The idea that if you just build the sandbox, the players will build your endgame for you. That if you do it right, content will just make itself. I believe this is where CIG learned the wrong lesson from Jumptown. They saw thousands of players fighting over one drug lab, and concluded that if they build enough interconnected systems, players would eventually create the rest of the game themselves. Give us an economy, criminal law, reputation, cargo, physical inventories, all that. And then just point everyone at the same universe and let human nature do the rest. As a result, CIG wouldn't have to manufacture every mission or story by hand. You can see that shift in the way Star Citizen's content developed after Jumptown. Early mission givers like Konstantin Hurston, Miles Eckhart, and Twitch Pacheco represented a much more handcrafted storytelling approach. They were actual physical characters in the world with dialogue, locations, prerequisites, and their own chain of missions. Post-Jumptown, CIG largely stopped expanding that approach. The focus moved towards reusable mission templates, reputation systems, dynamic events, and the idea that the economy itself would generate conflict. Look, I'm not going to insult you and pretend that I don't understand why they did this. I get it, because it's a major problem for every game studio. Handcrafted content is brutally expensive, and players burn through it almost immediately. CIG could spend months building a character, recording dialogue, and creating a chain of missions that a player finishes in just a single afternoon. A systemic sandbox promises something much more attractive. Build the rules once, and the players could theoretically generate new stories forever. Jumptown looked like proof that this could work, but unfortunately it just doesn't. There are examples all the way back to Star Wars Galaxies 23 years ago that having a sandbox itself doesn't keep the type of population you need to be commercially viable. Once the newness of the experience is gone, the population plummets in every game until you're left with the core audience. World of Warcraft showed everyone the power of the theme park experience, where every part of the player's journey was a series of interconnected quests, giving players a rigid structure in their gameplay. You never logged on and wondered what to do. The game was always going to tell you the next step, and if it was enjoyable enough, you just consumed the content. But even WoW couldn't defeat the problem. It's been a commercial success for 20 years now, yet every time a new expansion is out, it takes an army of developers a year or more to create it, and the player base chews through the content in a week or just a few short months. By chasing Jumptown, we basically languished for years in the persistent universe without enough content. My own loop was to log in every patch, play it for a few hours, then go do something else in the ever-growing back catalog of games I bought during Steam sales. Pyro was coming soon for 4 years straight, and it was a meme at that point. We kept getting new Tier 0 systems or pieces of systems or promises that another system was going to connect everything together later. Squadron 42 obviously played a role in that because a huge part of the company was working on it, but CIG also slowly built out the systemic parts of Star Citizen under the belief that eventually the game would start creating content for itself. And by 2024, I think something changed. CIG has all the data for player encounters, and I bet they saw the same thing I did. We can't make Jumptown again. I don't have the data, but I'm going to speculate that player engagement with the game was declining even as revenue started to increase. Star Citizen relies on hope, and one of the data points says that players still have it, while the other one says that they aren't playing the version of the game CIG's really building. And then we got that bombshell at CitizenCon 2024. Star Citizen 1.0 was going to become a hybrid of the sandbox and the theme park. There would still be all these player-driven systems, but now CIG was also talking about a main story, guild progressions, bosses, and an actual path through the game. It's a complete 180 from where I thought they were going. They didn't come out and just say the sandbox failed, because obviously they would never say that. Well, maybe Chris would if you gave him a microphone. But to me, that was their admission that the dynamic, systemic, emergent gameplay is really a myth. CIG also added base building and player crafting to the features we'd get with the finished game. They were concepts discussed years ago, but now they're a concrete, improved something that Star Citizen was missing: player ownership of the verse and a reason to care. When you build that cabin in the middle of nowhere in Castra and it's uniquely yours, that anchors you to the game. But maybe the worst legacy of Jumptown was how it shaped CIG's policy on PvP in the aftermath for the casual player. Their official response to people complaining about griefing and PvP abuse was that for the majority of the cases, the preferred solution was PvP. Just rally your friends, bring your org, and take out the offenders. They even referenced Jumptown in that message. Part of it was they wanted to create another Jumptown situation, but the other half was they had no real way to control PvP anyway. While they did carve out a separate category for excessive griefing like stream sniping, pad ramming, or firing into armistice zones, the average player getting repeatedly ganked is told to just rally their friends and fight back. The moment somebody uses a stream or an exploit to do it though, CIG will step in and investigate. And I understand why those things are different, but damn, it looks bad to the players. The responses to CIG's position were exactly as you'd expect. In a recent video, I said PvP in Star Citizen is basically seal clubbing and OM markers today by people that love griefing. I still stand by that, and oh boy, did the PvP sweats get upset about it. Some of them even tried to call me out on X. Whatever. That video got ratioed in the like to dislike as hard as I've ever seen, which tells you that most of the player base is right there with me on this. I was offered the chance to participate in these big organized battles between PvP orgs, and it was in a sarcastic, dismissive way to educate me on PvP. That's not the experience the rest of us have, and those fights look prearranged anyway, staged encounters rather than anything actually emerging on its own. That's why a PvP endgame for Star Citizen was never going to work. By making player bases and structures in PvP zones flashpoints where we have a real sense of ownership, it'll create the kind of conflict that the PvP crowd wants in the game, while, in theory, separating them from the rest of us. While I would argue that it's not dynamic emergent gameplay like Jumptown was, it doesn't have to be engaging to an entire server population to be effective. It only needs to appeal to the people that have an interest in protecting what's theirs or attacking somebody else's settlement. That creates conflict with personal stakes, and I just freaking love that idea. That can be a win for everyone. The only loose thread is forcing the rest of us into that conflict. CIG stated the higher end resources will be in the PvP focused dangerous systems. As long as those same resources spawn in somewhere else too, even as rare drops, players keep a real choice in how they engage with the game. And that's the final lesson of Jumptown. Forcing players into a playstyle they reject is a losing choice, and I think that they've corrected the course, and I think that what we're getting is even more exciting than what it could have been. It's just a shame that we lost about 5 years in the transition. This was a longer, deeper cut than I usually do, and I want to know if I got this right or from way off, so tell me what you think. Some of you never miss a chance to tell me I'm wrong, and of course, I love that. Share the video too, let's have the discussion, and as always, I'll see you in the verse.